So Diablo 4 is out, and, well, balance is not the name of the game, okay? There are already a ton of different builds out there, not max level, not gear capped even, that are literally one-shotting bosses in the damage of the billions. And group play is completely overpowered and busted also.
Hi everyone, I want to talk about groups and how ridiculously overpowered group play is going to be in Diablo 4. And I can give you some examples. So generally group play is going to be quite a lot better than solo play. We have seen this in other games, for example in Diablo 3, where
Makes
generally
sense.
group plays are always more efficient. You have party synergies, you have XP bonus for being in a party,
Yep.
and of course in an open world game like Diablo 4, there are other shenanigans, like you can actually teleport to each other and potentially skip long travel distances and these kind of things.
True.
So there are these like typical group buffs, I guess, that just come into play, just, you know, by virtue of having more people doing things and running around. And of course, because you can synergize with your builds. You can combine various, support characters potentially, or even just builds that kind of harmonize in some way. For example, ice shard sorcerers that just proc off each other's frost novas, for example, or you can combine
Also
such an
true.
ice shard sorcerer with an ice or cold imbue rogue, for example. So of course, the fact that you have more puzzle pieces allows you to just be more efficient, because you can potentially have, hyper scaling of builds in some
Yep,
form.
basic
But
stuff.
exactly what you see here is also very powerful. Like, you can just TP to another party member, you can get a waypoint. In fact, you can even do
Yeah.
that when you don't even have this stronghold cleared here. This is one of the strongholds. But of course, teleporting to each other is nothing really fancy. This is very expected in a multiplayer game, that you can actually play together and find each other. So of course you have trading between party members. So for example, when you play the same class, you're going to find the same loot. You can share it between each other, or you can just trade with other people. They can just give you stuff. We're absolutely going to see stuff like, streamers that have a huge community, just give them free gold, free items,
Yeah,
free
classic
elixirs. So we
thing.
have like a massively more powerful character than you should have because of that. Or you can just teleport to various places of interest. You can, have people.
Some people are really gonna be pissed about that, but I don't know. It's such a minor thing to honestly be upset about. Yeah, of course the streamer's gonna get benefits. Like, what do you expect? Them to not get something out of it? It just works like that. There's nothing to be upset about really too much.
Run towards the world boss for you, and then they invite you and you teleport to them. You can let them run to the dungeon. You can teleport to them for the dungeon. You can even have something like a cellar filled with goblins. That is actually a thing that is quite rare. Well, if you find a cellar filled with goblins, you're gonna invite 3 friends, and everyone gets a bunch of free legendaries.
Well, everyone gets a bunch of free legendaries, but keep in mind, more people, not only the XP is better, but the drop rate should also be technically increased. So, quadruple farming something like that, man, that's like Diablo 3 when it started. Interesting.
And if you just chain this back to back to back, that sounds pretty good to me, actually. So there's, of course, these kind of things that you can really go crazy with if you try. Now, another thing is that, for example, in outdoor content, enemies don't actually seem to scale up with the amount of people present. So I already showed this for the server
Hmm.
slam with Ashava, for example. It doesn't seem like even the world boss scales with the amount.
The world boss should scale, though. That's like a very basic mechanic, right? The world bosses scale with people, and there's some kind of upper cap, but
Of people present, or if it does, very little. And I think auto monsters just don't scale at all. So
Well, it's obviously not gonna be a world boss. One player, 100% life. Two players, 200% life. Yeah, the scaling is kind of minimal because you're not intended to solo world bosses in the first place. So that's kind of the thing. You're never actually intended to solo a world boss. That's why the scaling of HP is not 1-for-1. It's like, one player adds like, I don't know, 10% extra more life and things like that until an upper cap of, I don't know, 200% maybe or 300%.
any kind of like
Basic stuff, really.
outdoor zone farming, any kind of outdoor events are just significantly easier when more people are there. You can kind of like split up and just like, grab experience from people running around, just off screen somewhere, and kind of farm your way through the zones, do side quests more efficiently because you can potentially share the certain, like, kill objectives and these kind of things. So that obviously also helps to speed up. It's a bit like split farming bounties in Diablo 3, I guess. On top of that, there's also like the event farm that people were doing. So I don't have a
Oof,
clip of
event
that, but for
funds.
example, under Kyovar Shard, there was like a certain event spawn that people were abusing in groups, and they were just like trying to get into their own instance all the time and reset the event that way, but just like server hopping, so to say. So they were TPing to town, they were coming back, they were
It's
in
a
like a new
classic
layer
thing.
of the same zone with a new event spawn. They
Yeah.
finished it, and then they invited their friends right before they finish the event, and then you would just farm like ovals over ovals over ovals. Like every half minute or so, you could just complete an event if you did that right. And people were farming literally thousands of ovals per hour with that strategy in the server slam. So that was actually very feasible just a few weeks ago. But this is not really everything. It gets crazier than that, and this is that when you finish a dungeon, for example, in a group, you can actually share the renown and the completion. So you see me here finishing this dungeon, and Macrobio Boy, who's in my party, actually...
No way. They didn't. How do you leave something like this inside the game? This is a known thing from the since Diablo 2. Diablo 2 before the Lord of Destruction Ball came out, the fastest way to the maximum level cap was 99, and the level 98 to 99 was almost impossible to get because at that time, at that level, there were almost no monsters that actually gave you experience because they were severely under level below you. So they gave like 1/10 of their original experience. The only mob in the game that was left that gave decent experience was Diablo himself. So people who were trying to compete, and there were two, and there were essentially just. It wasn't, by the way, people who were competing to get 99 first. It was literally America versus Europe. I don't remember who won. I think Europe. There were groups of people doing sanctuary runs in Diablo 2 where they cleared all the mobs, got in maximum people, and waited until the person who was supposed to get claim the XP got. They were searching for experience shrines on the way to also give portals to that. So the person who was trying to, because it was a group effort. Reaching 99 solo-handedly in the original Diablo 2 was nearly impossible. It would have taken forever. It already took forever. This is why it was a group effort. Yeah, and this is essentially the same strat that they use there. You're just joining at the end where the biggest experience drop exists. I can't believe they did not fix something so basic and it's in the game. Unbelievable.
does get the completion from it. So this is no joke, you can actually split farm the renown from dungeons and the codex powers. So you see here you have this
Unbelievable.
dungeon pop up at the end of a run, and now you can see that I was able to complete dungeons that I never stepped foot into. You see here I'm standing literally in Kyovar Shard.
Oh, you just need to be in the party. Even better, Blizzard. Even better.
A dungeon
Wow.
completion. For example, for Dark Raven, from Theo just doing the dungeon for me. And the same here, like I'm in the middle of this sunken library dungeon, and Macro is doing the Purtuit Acathire, which is like some dungeon in Kyrgyzstan. I was not even in the same zone, I believe, and he's
Not
just
even the
completed a
same
dungeon for
zone.
me. So
That's
what you can actually do is
insane.
when you have 4 people, not only can you like completely like teleport around to each other, share waypoints, share the loot, etc., but you can actually just like go through a zone and everyone does like 5 or 6 dungeons and you have the entire zone completed by split farming all of the renown and all of the dungeons.
Makes
So
sense.
I'm pretty sure this is a
Amazing.
relatively major bug, but at least this is how it worked. Apparently, even going back to the open beta, people were apparently doing this, and I have also just retested this and it seems like it's still there. So this is how the game works right
Nice.
now. I mean, we might see a patch of this, maybe, maybe not. At least I don't think that we're gonna see a patch in time. I'm pretty sure that people are aware of this. People are getting ready to do their strats
Obviously, yes.
exactly revolving around this split farming strategy. And of course, this is pretty important. Right now, I would estimate that like a really fast solo player can probably complete, a full renown like zone in maybe like, 4 to 6 hours or something like that. Just going through the entire Fractured Peaks on a fast build, doing all of the dungeons and then doing the strongholds, collecting the altars and the waypoints, and then maybe a few side quests. And at some point, you're kind of done with all the renown. And of course, if you can like literally multiply the speed of like half of these objectives by a factor of 4 or so, then yeah, it's gonna be pretty fast. You can probably do like an entire zone, like an entire region of dungeons, like the entire Fractured Peaks, in maybe like an hour or less if you're really fast with a team of 4. At the very least, when it comes to the dungeon renown grind. But this is still not everything. So there are also just like regular game mechanics that are extremely group biased. So for example, talking about nightmare dungeons. So when you run nightmare dungeons, you have to use those sigils, and you also find those sigils when running them. And it appears like they actually drop for everyone in the party. So you can go in with one sigil and potentially come out with like 10 of them or so. And one really important strategy to maximize your efficiency when farming.
They have completely neglected any feedback. Classic Blizzard. Because people gave them feedback about this. 100% guaranteed. They gave them feedback, and what does Blizzard do? Too late. Hands tied. It is what it is. Amazing. This is why you shouldn't give feedback for most games, because they don't care. It's just something. Giving feedback in most games is just to make people shut up who think that the game is going in the wrong direction. Yeah, it's stupid.
Those nightmare sigils, which is like primary way of leveling to 100 later on, at least once you have done all the other stuff, is you want to chain the same dungeons of a certain tier that you can farm fast and efficiently. So you want to try to stack up the same dungeon so you don't have to travel time, because every time you open another dungeon you have to go there, and this takes like half a minute, 1 minute or so. So if you skip the travel and you actually potentially even split farm in a dungeon, you can do this really fast. Like some dungeons are definitely very well designed to be split farmed so that you can complete objectives at the same time, and the XP that you gain inside a dungeon is actually always shared no matter where you are. You can actually stand at the entrance and get XP from your other party members just killing something at the end of the dungeon. So you don't have to worry about losing anything there.
Power leveling,
on top of that,
nice.
you find all these nightmare sigils, so it's much easier to actually chain run the same dungeons over and over as a team, or at least chain like the best dungeons, because there's definitely better and worse dungeons. And you just go there, do like 10 runs of this dungeon, everyone opens their sigils, and then you go to the next dungeon, and then everyone opens the sigils again. And you repeat with just like, the 2 or 3 best dungeons on repeat all the time. Whereas, for example, a solo player will have a much higher variety and a much more downtime as well because of the traveling in running those different nightmare sigils. But that's not everything. You also have the option to revive each other. So you see, for example, when you do like a really hard nightmare dungeon, you might actually like use up all those revives that you have. You see here on an ancestral tier sigil, there's only 4 revives. But if someone dies, you don't actually lose one of these revives. It only actually counts when you get up.
I mean, if you don't one-shot the dungeon in an instant, is that even a real build?
At the last checkpoint. But in a team, you can also revive each other. So as long as it's not a full team wipe, you can just revive each other. And it's also relatively easy to do so, because you don't actually need to channel a revive like from start to finish. It takes like 4 seconds or something like that. But the channel can be interrupted and you can come back and continue the channel. So you can just kind of like, even if there's monsters around, for example, you can just click on it, maybe half a second or 1 second, then, run a circle, come back, stun the monster, and then finish the revive or something like that. So it's actually relatively easy to abuse the system and just revive each other all the time in case someone dies. And of course, especially when it will come to something like nightmare dungeon pushing, you actually want to stack up this sigil powder so that you can craft those highest tier nightmare dungeons, potentially get one that is like relatively easy and has also easy affixes. And of course, with more people dropping all these sigils, it's going to be a lot easier to actually get those sigils that you can then try to open and then run together and get even more sigils, and can just like kind of perma
snowball effect,
if you do like some group content, so to say. So even if you don't aim for like a tier 100, you could just do this for a little while on like some kind of high tier, and you're gonna produce so many sigils that you can salvage for the sigil powder that you kind of like set up for, the end of time, so to say. But that's still not everything.
Dude.
There is actually also boosting in Diablo 4. So you can not just, complete a renown objectives for someone literally standing in town AFK.
Well, if there's no requirement for a level, Paragon level, or anything for a sigil, yeah, just get boosted. This is quite obviously a thing that's 100% gonna happen.
But you can also boost their characters really fast. We tried it out in our team, so we made a fresh character and we just skipped campaign. There's like the skip campaign button that after the first character that you have played, you can just make a fresh character. And you can just go straight to the capstone dungeon and boost someone through this capstone dungeon. And the thing is that a low level character, like a level 1 character, walking into the capstone dungeon that's like level 50, you do get a lot of XP. And again, you don't even have to be in danger. You can just stand at the entrance and just
obviously
forego the group XP buff, which is...
Hey, this is a Diablo 2 experience, go the classic runs: Tristram, Tombs, Cows, Ball. Then you do Nightmare Ball runs. Then you do Hell Ball runs. Or the alternative, level 3 in Hell, and then do Sanctum runs until level 60. Yeah, man, those were so fast. You could get level like 85 in 4 hours or something like that, if you had someone who just rushes you through everything and you did the Sanctum runs. Good stuff.
It's not really that significant. And just be protected and AFK leech, so to say, in the entrance of the dungeon. And then the carry just finishes the boss and you have Nightmare difficulty unlocked. Well,
nice.
There you go. And then you repeat that with the second capstone dungeon and you have Torment difficulty unlocked. And well, now you're like a level 30 character already after 5 or 10 minutes or so of completing these capstone dungeons.
Nice.
And we tried to just keep going a little bit after that, and we managed to boost one of our characters to level 50. And
by the way, yeah, I'm saying nice here, but it is. It not in a good way, by the way, because Diablo 3 is fundamentally not 3, but Diablo 4 is a fundamentally different experience than Diablo 2. In Diablo 2, that was normal. That was what you expect. And honestly, that was kind of what you wanted. But this is different.
I don't know, something like 45 minutes or so is probably quite achievable. So if you have a fast build, maybe even faster. So we weren't really trying to super optimize around, trying to defeat super low level enemies, so to say. At least when we did that. But when you have a really endgame character, you can go real fast, you can fly through those dungeons, and some of those dungeons are really good to farm. And of course, in a group, you can also just reset a dungeon whenever you want to. You don't actually have to wait this half a minute or 1 minute or so in front of a dungeon.
By the way, considering you one-shot everything, what's the point of a dodge button? What exactly is the point of a dodge button if you're literally one-shotting the boss instantly?
After completing it, to try to reset it. In a group, you just reset the party and you go back in. So yeah, in general, I don't really have much of a problem with group play being good. It's kind of fine. It's a multiplayer game. It's an online game.
Yeah, it's truly not a problem if it being real.
I do have to say that some of these are a little bit over the top though, especially this AFK leeching in dungeons, this AFK leeching in town to get renown. You can literally have people just standing in town and begging for someone to invite them while they are just AFK. We're gonna see that for sure. And of course, trading is very, very powerful because rare items can be as good as legendaries later. So in general, group play and any kind of interaction with other people is very strongly, I would say, recommended. And I would even say required for any kind of competitive play. So if you're trying to be at the top, if you want to try to race to 100, then, well, as a solo player,
it's not happening. The race to 100 is going to be done by group play 100%. Because they are going to save so much time in getting their builds that they want that can one-shot everything. Just alone from that's going to give them a huge advantage over everything else.
You basically have absolutely zero chance, so just let me tell as much.
Yeah.
And in general, of course, we don't have leaderboards in the game.
Good luck
so
to the dreamers, though.
Is not exactly very there, so to say. But people still want to try to compare. People still going to have their own competitions and all that kind of stuff. In terms of competitiveness, it's definitely a major issue. So people want to enjoy the game on their own as well. And
I will say this. I never expected group play. I never expected the race to 100 to be actually fair. Because it's Blizzard we're talking about. They have not gotten PvP good in the Diablo game since well, ever. Literally, there has never existed a Diablo game that has balanced PvP. Blizzard in general is not actually known for being good at balancing their games. In fact, the exact opposite. Blizzard is wildly known to be extremely incapable when it comes to balance. So the fact that someone just finds something and abuses it to level 100, completely 100% what I put my money on that's going to be the winners. Someone who abuses groups, someone who abuses layering, someone who abuses some kind of quest that can be repeated multiple times. It's going to be that 100%.
And if you don't have like really any chance whatsoever against group players, that's a bit of a problem. So it just takes away from the fun. Personally, I'm also a big solo enjoyer, so I like the SSF life. At least, I think long term, this is something that the devs should think about. Making some kind of SSF mode, or at the very least, some kind of like SSF verification of some sort, so that
That's
people
nice.
that actually do
Yeah.
not want to have any kind of group advantages, no trading and all that, they can at least kind of prove that of some sort, and maybe have like a leaderboard filter for these kind of things. I think that would at the very least be very useful. Now, what it means for the launch of Diablo 4 is there's definitely going to be real money trading of items. They're certainly not going to try to find them in-game, because there's only the trade chat, and that's a really awful tool to try to find any kind of trading partner, either selling or buying. We're definitely going to have people that have either an army of bots or an army of followers, feeding them with gold, with items, with elixir.
Well, to be fair, no streamer is gonna win the race to 100 by taking donations. People would riot. People would literally riot if that happened. So that's not happening. Plus, every streamer who would be serious about this, like, you need to understand one thing about competitive people. A streamer is not gonna abuse his status as a streamer, most likely to get 100, because if they have the mindset of being a competitive player, that will probably be akin to cheating in their opinions, unless they are completely fine with cheating and being a scumbag. But that means that they probably don't have a huge audience, honestly.
Years, so that they are generally just more powerful and have an easier time, and obviously to gain an advantage. And then there's also going to be like, get your full fractured peaks, a dungeon completion, every, all 23 dungeons, just $3.99, stand AFK in town for 1 hour and you're done, kind of deals as well. So I definitely expect that to happen.
That's nice.
Now, does
That's
it mean
cool.
that the game is going to be terrible?
I like that. I do kind of theoretically like that to a degree, considering we currently do not exactly know how true what Blizzard said about us making multiple characters with different specs is gonna be. Because, if one spec turns out to be complete dog water because Blizzard decides to nerf it, and I can't afford the respec because Blizzard said, well, if you're level 100, you shouldn't actually be you shouldn't actually be capable of just respecking it willy-nilly if you want people to make new accounts. It depends on this, how much that will annoy people, how much replay value is there in the early game and stuff like that. So maybe we actually do want to keep all these power leveling tools available still, because maybe that's actually going to be for the good of the game, because no one really wants to spend 50 10 20 hours leveling up again. Admittedly, that's kind of a wild shot, honestly, but it's possible. It may be possible.
Well, absolutely not. I think the game is awesome. I just want to kind of like shed some light on these issues though. So this is things that the developers need to pick up on and just try to fix, try to find solutions. Like at the very least, fix this dungeon split farm. I guess this is a relatively obvious one in my opinion. Maybe they weren't aware. So, okay, it might get hotfixed, who knows. But in general, at least we need something, I believe, that makes solo play a little bit more worthwhile. I don't want to sound like I'm ranting about this now. It's just that
solo play is for people, though, who like solo play. Even without the solo self-found mode in Path of Exile, people already did that. It's nice to have it's kind of nice to have a thing that shows that you are solo self-found and you made this cool thing happen. But people who want to play solo self-found or hardcore, even without the option of hardcore, even if it didn't exist, they would still do it, because it's all up to you. If you want solo self-found, just don't trade. Don't go in parties. If you want hardcore, well, if you die, just delete your character. That's literally it. That's so simple.
But this is how the game works, and I believe adjustments can be made. So that's about it. Let me know your thoughts about it. Maybe also weren't aware of a lot of these things. I imagine this is probably news to a lot of people. I actually talked about this earlier. And did have a little
not exactly commonly known knowledge
with some of the PoE.
In any case, like, comment, subscribe below. I am out. Have a nice day. Bye bye.